What if the key to fixing our food system started beneath our feet? That's the question Dr. Jill Clapperton has been asking and answering for decades. Her life's work is all about exploring and sharing the art and science behind healthier soil and a better food system. Welcome to the Jill Clapperton podcast, which now includes our Tasting Terroir interview segments, connecting the flavors of food back to the healthy soil practices that create them. Hosted by internationally renowned rhizosphere ecologist Dr. Jill Clapperton and co-host Sarah Harper, this podcast features real conversations with regenerative farmers, scientists, and artisan food makers who are redefining what's possible in agriculture and proving that change starts with the soil. It's all part of a larger mission at Rhizoterra, Jill's company dedicated to improving soil health, crop quality, and human nutrition. And now we're bringing it all together. Podcast episodes, soil science clips, expert interviews, and more on our new YouTube home, youtube.com Jill Clapperton Soil Health. So if you're passionate about regenerative farming, nutrient-dense food, or simply want to understand what really makes soil and our food system come alive, you're in the right place. Subscribe, listen, and grow with us.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Sarah Harper, co-host and executive producer of the podcast. I'm so glad you're here with us. Today, we're taking you to Australia, where exciting events are about to unfold that bring together farmers, soil health experts, and regenerative agriculture leaders. Our guest is Sarah Fay, founder of BEAR Biologics, which stands for BEAR Essential Agriculture Resource Management. Sarah has spent more than 15 years working alongside farmers, building both awareness and practical skills for how to manage the natural resources we already have on our land. Her mission is to empower farmers to understand the science behind those resources, the biology, the rotations and interactions in the soil, so that they can make better decisions before ever reaching for outside inputs. Through one-on-one coaching, small group sessions, and large events, Sarah has been helping farmers navigate the changes in agriculture, from rising input costs and chemical resistance to consumer pushback. Her work is all about showing how to improve efficiency, rethink rotations, and redesign systems in ways that put soil biology at the center. That's why she's bringing Jill Clapperton to Australia for a series of events to help farmers not only see the whole system, but also dive deeper into key areas of soil health and food quality. So today, you'll hear from Sarah Fay and Jill Clapperton together as we preview these upcoming events in Australia and talk about the shift that's happening across farming communities worldwide. Jill's going to be going to Australia for a great trip, be there for quite some time, and doing some amazing, cool events, a number of them with you, Sarah Fay, and your organization. We're excited to give listeners a preview, and of course, for those who are in Australia that can make it, give them a chance to make plans and come join the amazing fun. Just to start, I know our listeners are familiar with Jill, but maybe some of the folks that might be coming to the event haven't heard about Jill and her connection to Australia. So, Jill, why don't we start off by you sharing your background? Who are you, Jill Clapperton?
Who am I? Who is Jill Clapperton? I am a research scientist. For 16 years, I was the rhizosphere ecologist at the Lethbridge Research Center in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. After that, I went to the United States working out of Montana. Eventually, I transitioned my company right to Spokane, Washington, in the middle of the second largest wheat growing area in North America. The Palouse soils are just amazing for growing wheat and growing small grains and pulses, chickpeas, garbanzo beans, all those kinds of things. So I learned a lot about those crops when I was there. And then I went and founded a company in Boston, Massachusetts, where the whole goal was to look at the nutrient concentrations in food and see if there's any linkage to how they were grown. The whole idea was food is the actual outcome of everything we do as farmers. How can we look at the quality of food? I think we all intuitively believe that the flavors and the quality of the food is directly linked to healthy soils and our practices. We still have a long way to go to prove that kind of thing. I was really missing the land and being outside working with soils and farmers. So I moved to a property in south central Kansas, the Ballot Ranch. So cattle, forage, mostly growing forages, not really growing crops. I've got some grain, sorghum, milo, as we call it. I'm a farmer, do some cattle ranching, and I'm getting more into beef production. In between that time, I took a lot of time off and I didn't really do a lot of extension with soil health. That doesn't mean I wasn't still working on soil health. I wasn't still analyzing soils. I still wasn't working with farmers. I was working with small groups of farmers, more in a coaching capacity than anything else. Just recently, last year, I started doing more presentations again and really stepping out into presenting data, presenting science with the goal to help farmers make decisions based on science. Because I really believe that we should be making our decisions based on science.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And Sarah, I keep calling you Sarah Faye because I'm Sarah as well.
The double Sarah act with Jill.
Yes. Tell us about yourself and your organization, BEAR Biologics.
Thank you. I'm from the land my whole life, 54 years, farmer's daughter, sister to my brother, currently still a farmer, since doing raw science very passionately. I've got a farmer father and a teacher mother, so I've merged the two. I love to support, teach, and empower farmers. I've had the background of being in conventional extension in cotton industry and then again, extension in the Northern Territory. I've worked in many regions of Australia. And I guess really from having that kind of background, seeing the importance not only for farmers, but also fellow consultants and coaches, the skill set of how to explore a soil, how to unpack a soil test, how to plant map, how to look for where the insects are hanging out, how to look at the whole of the system from the soil up. I did a deep dive, hence BEAR Biologics, over 25 years ago. My thesis was really about nitrogen mineralization, which is all pumped by biology, really, that whole cycle of nitrogen. But the appreciation of biology I have had in the last couple of decades and helping others see that is really important to me. And bear came from nickname, Say Bear, you might have had that too, but it evolved for me. I was actually doodling in my cotton extension job one day, thinking, what could I make bear mean? So it's Bear Essential Agriculture Resource Management. So we have so many free resources. If we understand the science behind those resources and understand how to manage them better as land managers, then we have so much that we can be doing even before we decide whether we need an input from somewhere else. And I guess that's what my events for the last 15 years and my one-on-one coaching or mini groups that I've been doing, especially down here from returning from the Northern Territory, has been very much about there is a change in agricultural space. We're getting more awareness about the impacts of the asides from multiple reasons, like from consumer pushback, from costs, from resistances happening, to empower farmers to understand how those products might affect, how to improve the efficiency, maybe substitute, or even totally redesign their rotation, drives me every day. And then to do these events and bring wonderful people like Jill in that can really help people see the whole, but then there's also key areas that Jill can really help us dive in deeper as well.
You both have been working with farmers, food companies, and groups in communities together. Jill has an online community and WhatsApp chat, and it's that coaching aspect that's so important in regenerative agriculture or agriculture that's very focused on soil health. As I've learned from Jill, you're using plants to do the work that maybe others use chemicals to do. It's getting that experience from other farmers and scientists who can translate the science. That seems like a lot of what you both are doing.
Yeah.
And that's support. They need, when you're
Yeah.
doing something different, it's always hard to acknowledge that you now need to do differently. You've got to acknowledge that you've got to change because there was an error, and it's hard to do that alone. So it's better to help support them to get into a peer group that understands what they're talking about. And then the fun of that, of having also empowering them with what the right things to say, how to explain. They understand more effectively what we're doing and why, and hence why this sort of hands-on monitoring we'd like to do during this series of events and keep building upon that, build a community where they're building this literacy. They then have the language to share to their neighbour as to why they want to hear when they're putting on that spray of XYZ, or why they've planted that different crop. There's 4 different species in there. Once you can explain something, you understand it better for yourself, but then you're helping more people are, build that community that can support each other around you. Because often there's farmers doing this boldly, and these champions, but they're often surrounded by a community and they're not as accepted at the pub anymore. So it can be isolating to try and bring those groups, like either expand them out or connect nodes of them, is what I'm keen to do as well.
Yeah, well, and that's a lot of what Jill does in the context that she has are global farmers all over the world talking together because they're like-minded, even if they're not geographically right next to each other. Jill, you've had a lot of experience in Australia and you have a lot of farmers there that you keep in regular contact with. So why don't you share a little bit about your history with Australia?
Oh, my history with Australia goes right back to taking a year off of university. My uncle lived in Sydney. He was the Canadian High Commissioner to Australia. He said it was the best place he'd ever visited. So I went and stayed in Australia in his house in Sydney and fell in love with sailing and racing sailboats, cruising sailboats. And then I had this amazing opportunity. I've always loved agriculture, even though I didn't grow up in agriculture. I just like growing plants. I think that comes from my grandfather and gardening and things like that. I didn't have the same background that Sarah has. I got the opportunity to work on a station in northern New South Wales, right near the Queensland border. I stayed there for 3 months and worked on the property, riding a motorbike for the first time, having a dog sitting behind me with his head on my shoulder while we're riding the motorbike, mustering sheep, marking sheep, drenching sheep, killing sheep, you name it, riding horses and mustering cattle, which were mostly feral. And, see, and then all the wildlife, like finding out the hard way that emus run in pairs. And if you ride your motorbike between them, you get knocked off. So, yes, I've learned some lessons the hard way, but I had a great time there. I'm not going to say the flies were awesome, but I did learn that you just keep the flies off your face and everything else you learn to tolerate. And I've never ridden a motorbike again with shorts on because I had my little lesson of burning my inside of my leg on the exhaust system. So that was my first real agricultural experience. When I joined Ag Canada after I had my PhD, I found myself working with farmers that were Australian. And I was invited to speak at WAMFTA, Western Australia No-Till Association. And a lot of my work was associated with no-till because no tillage really builds soil biology. It allows for soil biology to build their infrastructure, which allows for better soil structure, better water infiltration, better air, all of these really good things, better rooting, which means more carbon. I mean, it just sort of goes on in a beneficial way. Then I started to work on earthworms and more soil biology, soil mites, which actually led me to do sabbatical leave in Canberra. So I took my family to Canberra and I worked as CSIRO with Jeff Baker before he retired on earthworms and spent some time in Tasmania and around the place, understanding more about how earthworms were in Australia. I also co-wrote some work with Lynn Abbott out of the University of Western Australia. And then through them got to meet a lot of farmers. And started to work with Vic No-Till and South Australia No-Till. I kept up with all those farmers. A lot of them have been part of peer groups that I work with. Of course, I've worked a reasonable amount with Grant Sims and Down Under Covers. From the time that I could read National Geographic and saw the first article on Australia, I've loved Australia. Always figured that Australia would be where I'd immigrate. Instead, I came to the United States. What can I say?
I think you're going to be there for a month.
Yeah.
And a lot of great events that you're going to be part of there. Speaking of that, tell us about the events that are coming up that Jill's going to be participating with you out there.
So yes, it all kicks off on the 23rd of September with a dinner. I did that quite intentionally because Jill shared with me this really cool concept and dinner that she'd done in New York. I'm like, man, we've got to do that. Totally got to do that, or try and do it in the Aussie way. So it's going to be an experiential dinner on the 23rd with all local produce from this region, having the opportunity to showcase. Due to that work that Jill's been doing in terms of flavor, paddock to flavor is the actual name of the event. We're going to give them this experience of using meat, different management practices, and then testing if they can taste a difference. A bit like a wine tasting, but a food tasting. There's going to be canapes and then the mains. Inside of there's going to be this bit of fun that Jill's going to be the main ringleader, MC, or fun creator of. They'll be more aware of what the main meal is and dessert. And that's going to all happen at the John Darren Woolshed, which is another really iconic location in our region.
Excited for the dinner. That is a really fun thing to do. So this comes from work I do with a restaurant in New York, and we did analysis of the beef from my place here in Kansas, and then we were testing beef, and then I did the analysis on it. Can you smell that? What does that smell like? What does that taste like? And then we have access to an app that people are going to be able to download and actually do a proper beef tasting. They can participate with the beef tasting on the app, or they can just enjoy the beef and not worry about it and just go, I like this one, I don't like this one, it's fine. Multi-species will taste very different from mostly grass, and even the characteristics of the meat itself will be quite different. It's sort of like the art and science of meat come together.
And I think the competition is on between all the different farmers. So that's becoming a bit of fun as well. There's people reaching out from all sorts of different backgrounds. That could be a bit of fun to narrow it down to 4 or 5, Jill. But then there's still the opportunity during the meal that people get to taste the beef, the turkey, the lamb, the pork that comes from our region. The experience doesn't finish with the little bit of fun that we do. And yeah, we'll be sharing who those producers are pretty clearly, so that after the event, if they've really enjoyed something, they'll know how to find that farmer. Very much about giving profile to farmers and connection to the consumer.
I think it's really important to highlight and talk about all the great things that farmers do that a lot of consumers know nothing about. We hear a lot of doomsday things all the time, like how terrible farmers are and they don't do anything for the environment. Every time you get a chance to highlight in a community the people that are surrounding urban areas that are doing great things for the environment, you want to highlight them, give people a chance to taste and access their produce and buy from their community and stay within their community. I think if we think about what is regenerative, then that's also about regenerating your community.
Exactly. And that shortening of the supply chain. There's several in our BEAR Biologics community that have really strong CSAs, which is community supported agriculture. It works both ways. Their community has supported them in drought and they've reciprocated with beautiful food. I think that bringing back a community is such, even in the educational part of this, is what every level of community, right down in the soil, every little community that you can think of, we're trying to regenerate and build in what we're doing.
And that's a really important piece that regenerative agriculture is able to do, which is embedding all of this back into food, connecting the farmer to food and not just to a commodity.
So I guess that's why I wanted to do the dinner, you know, the impact that management had on flavor. So they carry that through to the next day when we're literally going to be talking about embracing diversity and monitoring outcomes on a wonderful farm run by Russell from Young Seeds and his family, parents David and Leone. He's a farmer that's almost become addicted to demonstration or trials, which is great. Nearly everywhere we look, there's something going on. And I guess that's the type of fever that I love farmers to get in this, because he is hearing things, learning things, and then willing to explore that. So no better place to be almost his own citizen scientist, I suppose. But there's the need for support in that. How's a good way to set up a demonstration and a safe to fail trial instead of shrugging shoulders and going, well, I don't know if it worked. The day is all about helping equip farmers to, okay, I tried this and I had where I did it and where I didn't do it. So now I can compare. I can compare that right throughout the season, but how do I do that? Probably framing it up initially with Jill sharing why it's important, the ins and outs from a very science but related farmer voice, scientist voice, that she can speak from both. And we've actually been able to collaborate with Jill and discuss different options in terms of the intercropping, companion and multi-species. So we've actually got a designated area where we're actually exploring different combinations. So we've gone beyond monoculture and can start talking about the power of different plants together, who likes hanging out together, who maybe shouldn't hang out together, but there could be something you learn from that that actually helps you set up a rotation that helps boot out a weed, whether they're a farmer or consultants supporting farmers, extension people that haven't actually monitored or looked in this way before, can see the benefit of doing that. Because some of these trial sites are like 10 plus years now, and they are even bringing in a regenerative rotation. So they are curious about the regenerative. So let's help them understand nutrition does matter. Let's monitor that, because I've experienced some of these research, they've never seen a SAP test before. They showed them and they'd never seen one. Like, wow, how exciting if they actually had that data and then were empowered to put foliars on. They could actually probably see yield improvements beyond what they've ever experienced, because they've not been fully supporting the plants yet. So I guess it's a day where we're trying to bring that whole community again.
I think we want to get away from photos. For me, it's about, let's make our decisions based on science. If we set up the trials correctly, they don't have to be big. You can make your own decision based on your own results on your own farm. That's really important, because then you can say, oh, right, this actually worked, or this didn't work. And the rep can say, well, it doesn't work every year. How about we do it again next year? And these are the kinds of things that I think we need to explore a little bit more. We've got intercropping, companion cropping, and we're exploring a lot of different things at this site.
You get to see that, right?
Yeah, and we're going to explore root systems. Jill's stage will be literally in a soil pit, so that she can show the whole plant.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to see the roots and show the difference, because we've chosen plants that have deeper roots and shallower roots and tried to create root canopies. So we want to be able to show people how you create a root canopy, and then really talk about how you build soil organic matter, soil structure, and soil biology. You build that biological community below ground. And that's the most important part.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at these things and how they all work together, and watch the whole movie.
And have a person there that knows what these different things mean,
Yep.
what you're seeing, and how to break that down into, well, what does that mean and what do I do with that?
And what they can grow. I
Right.
mean, we're going to be growing some different things that I wouldn't necessarily grow here, but I know that they're going to be able to grow there. So we're going to do some of that work. We are going to talk about planting with purpose.
Explain that to people.
When you decide on multi-species covers and things like that, that you actually think about, what do I want to achieve with this mix? And your baseline always has to be, I want to build soil health. So the next thing is, well, what else do I want to do? Because your cover crop, your companion crop, all of it should always support soil health. That's the first thing. Underlying all of it is soil health. And then after that, it's like, well, I want to feed my livestock. Oh, well, I want to feed lactating ewes. Oh, no, I want to feed pregnant cattle. What should I be planting if I want to do that? What should I be planting to smother my weeds, to break my insects, things like that. We want to be thinking about what plants do we want to put in a mix, or what mixes can we buy? Because a lot of people put together really nice mixes. What mixes can we buy that would support some of our ideas? Making custom mixes isn't for everybody, but if you have specialty animals like horses or dairy cattle, or you want to make a medicinal pasture, let's say you have animals that are not doing very well, can I make a sick bay pasture with some medicinal herbs and things like that so we can increase the health of these animals and let them choose for themselves? Sometimes what they choose can be very diagnostic of what they're ailing from. These are some of the things that we'll start exploring, especially as we get into the next day, Sarah, Faye, which is masterclass.
Yeah, with yourself and myself. Only 25 places for that. We limit that intentionally because have had lots of requests and different guests over the years. I've been doing masterclass to enable people that have been on this journey for decades to go even deeper, push back on paradigms, have a knowledge broker in the room that has maybe seen more around the globe that they can float an idea with. We can all, as a group, circle around and talk about that.
I think we want to say that's a safe space. This
Yeah,
is all
absolutely.
ideas are share your ideas. There's no bad idea. You'd be surprised how many people might have tried something that you thought was not worth trying and actually succeeded. So the idea is to share openly, and certainly Sarah and I will be doing the same thing. Also, to explore some next steps that you want to achieve, because as farmer, if you get to a point where your system is really working, it's just about tweaking. And sometimes that's really hard to stay engaged when you're just kind of tweaking things. So what we want to do is like, okay, well, how can we take another step and go even further? Are there some burning questions that you really want to get into and understand? Like, how does this work? Why does this work? It doesn't mean that I have all the answers or Sarah has all the answers, but it does mean that we can bring our joint resources to bear, and maybe we can find the answers somewhere.
It's probably going to be more facilitation because my experience, the community that shows up and is in the room is extraordinary. So
Absolutely.
what the gift that group together and where we go can be very much built because of the community who's in the room. We can have ideas of what we think we might cover in the day, but really it can go totally different, and we're willing to take it wherever the group needs it to go. And we'll again do that on farm so that there's the opportunity, if we really feel like we need to duck into a certain paddock or a certain spot, that we can go there and actually do hands-on stuff to help them.
Yeah, I really like what you said about when you get farmers in the room, an exponential growth in agronomic understanding. A lot of times farmers think I need an agronomist to come in and help. But if I have 25 farmers in a room, I have 25 seasoned agronomists. There isn't much I can help you with. But there's a lot we can facilitate and other learnings and experiences. I think it's just going to be really fun. I always love those things. I never really know what I'm going to learn, and I never really know where the conversations are going to go, but they're always fun and they're always really innovative and creative.
Yeah, cool. And then we have a break, but we'll do a bit of traveling on that day and then head over to the Gympie region to do more tree crop grazing type of workshop there. The opportunity is that with the supporters and the sponsors, there'll be a bit of demonstration of equipment and really taking on the same theme, just in a slightly different context, with more tree cropper and grazing people in that area. It's open for any farmer to absolutely come and join us there.
What would you say are some of the topics you expect to be discussed? I mean, obviously there are practices and there's science, but the high level topics that you think you'll get into during these events?
Well, I think you've got that full range of people that are not even sure what data to gather, but then there's some that have been taking data for quite a while, but it's still like how to make the most of that, how to really fully understand that. Have they been doing tissue tests? Should they have been doing sap tests? Could they have been doing, especially in tree crops? Or is there more observations that we can share that they can do more for themselves without needing to use the lab yet, like hand tools? those sorts of things. I think just getting people to share in what way they're actually monitoring right now. Like, what do they think monitoring is? And getting an understanding of the value of that from the science perspective, but also the decision-making perspective. I think often they're responding to a perceived problem, but sometimes if you don't dig into observation, you might actually be responding to the wrong thing. Like, you might actually be worrying about the wrong thing, especially in regeneration of systems. Understanding that an insect or a weed or a disease actually means back to a nutritional conversation more than anything, and not necessarily do you have to do a knee-jerk reaction to put something on. What else can you look at? What else data can we bring into this? How much moisture is in the soil? What other plants are there that might be able to support delivery of that? Is there more beneficial insects than damaging insects?
I see it as an opportunity to show people what you can do on farm, like what they can do for themselves, and how powerful observation is and how powerful knowing is. Farmers know when things aren't quite right. So then it's okay. Now you know it's not quite right. How do we narrow in on what is it that's not right? You look at the field and you go, there's something wrong here. Okay, then how do we narrow down on what's wrong? How do we look at the diagnostics of that? And then also, now I have all this data, and what do you do with it? Because the thing is, it's just data points if we don't actually know how to interpret it or act on it. The idea is, what data do you actually need to be actionable? Can you observe something and take action on your observations? And there's a lot of really powerful observational tools now and things you can do with the camera on your phone. What I've learned from my friends that are physicians is it's about the trend lines. Are you trending up? Are you trending down? Are you staying the same? Let's talk about, what trend line do you want to be on? And what do you want to see? When it comes to soil biology, a lot of people go, is this any good? Let's talk about, how do I know what's good? How do I know what's not good? How do I know when things are going downhill? How do I know when things are going uphill? How do I know when things are just fine and all I have to do is tweak? I think those are the kinds of things that we'll discuss for sure. And then what can I throw in there to jumpstart an apathetic system?
And I think getting really realistic about their budgets too, and production goals, like how each individual has a different aversion to risk and a different reality in terms of what they want to achieve and what they want from their system, to also help them understand that more effectively is part of what comes out of when you're exploring this data. If there's a trend up or a trend down, how much do you want to push that? What are your goals in terms of production?
It's interesting what you said about foliars, because, I mean, a lot of foliar spraying of micronutrients was pioneered in South Australia by Joe Wilhelm from Sardi.
For people who don't know, that's spraying on a leaf, right?
Thank you, Sarah. It means that you're actually spraying fertilizer on the plant itself so it will take it up and trying to account for deficiencies.
Yep.
So it's like taking a vitamin pill. And in that case, it's like spray vitamins for plants. We can foliar and we can spoon feed them and only give them what they really need and really adjust for seasonality. If the season is really dry, yields don't look good, so how do we fertilize for that? I mean, and that's all comes back to Sarah's idea of budgets. What should I really be budgeting for?
It sounds like a fantastic event, both fun and educational. The other thing it struck me is that it's important to have knowledge of a specific place because farming is very dependent on an exact location that you're at. But it is also beneficial to have someone that has perspective of what a lot of different farmers in different places have been through. And I know because Jill, coming off of, we just did the South Africa podcast episode and hearing the discussions about it's so different in South Africa from, anywhere else, yet the challenges are very similar. The challenges that farmers face are similar. And so having that ability to look at the layers of different farmers around the world that are dealing with some similar challenges in very different ways, I would think would really add a layer of value too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we very intentionally feed them very well too, Sarah.
Yes, of
Nutrient-dense food grown locally so
Yeah.
that they can absorb all of this,
I'm
right?
excited to go. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing my Australian friends, and I'm also looking forward to meeting new friends. One last thing, Sarah, just to remind everybody that we're coming into spring, so everything's growing. After Russell harvests the trials and Sarah collects the data, we will be posting results so that people who have been at the field days or have gone by the trials will have a chance to learn of the results.
That's great.
And I guess the plan is to create this community that moves forward together under the branding of Farming for Life, so that we create a space that we keep. We have had a couple of mini catch-ups there with pop-up groups, but certainly seeing the need for this community and literacy in terms of monitoring and safe to fail trials and agronomy. The goal is to create, this community farming for life and sharing in multiple ways, and even the whole of life health. So I've got health practitioners that I are part of my mentoring team that will come in, and farmers can choose to do that training with Tyler Tolman to improve their overall health. We'll also bring in another mentor, Bucky O'Neill, for them to take on some mindset training. So certainly trying to bring in support from all angles to help people move forward in this transition.
Okay, well, thank you both for your time. Do take lots of pictures, and we'll have to get a report from how the dinner and the days went after the trip.
Yeah.
Sarah, just let people know, where is it that they can go to learn more about these events and connect with you?
Yeah, thank you. Details either on BEAR Biologics webpage, so bearbiologics.com.au, or follow BEAR Biologics on Facebook or Instagram. Dropping stuff on LinkedIn as well.
We'll be resharing information about the events we have already, but we'll continue to reshare it on our social media channels too. If you're following Jill Clapperton Soil Health on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, or Jill_Clapperton on Twitter, you'll be able to find it there as well. All right. Thank you both very much, and have a great trip.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that podcast as much as I did. I really enjoy chatting with amazing people that are doing fantastic things. I just can't help being enthusiastic for the future. And I hope that it gives you a sense of hope. Hope that we're always going to be able to cope with climate change, and we're always going to be able to grow enough nutritious food for everyone. And that agriculture is really going to be the answer to a lot of our problems. It is the solution. The future is bright, and we should all be hopeful. And more than anything, I hope I'll see you the next time. Bye for now.